Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming along tonight, especially with impending storms evidently that they've been telling us about this afternoon, and doesn't sound as if it's hit yet. Welcome to this Newcastle Institute event. I know there's a few new people tonight and we really appreciate you coming, and some people have joined. Tonight we are looking at valuing the arts in Newcastle. We've done something similar before where we took a broader perspective on the arts. This time we're focusing on the visual arts. And it coincides with the reopening of the Newcastle Art Gallery in a couple of weeks as a soft opening, and the official opening in early next year. I'm checking that Prue is nodding. Tonight we're meeting on the lands of the Awabakal people, and we acknowledge those people that are here today, elders past and leaders in the future in that community. Like First Nations people here in Australia generally, and First Nations people around the world, they have shared their stories, culture, history through art in many forms. Imagine our lives without their creative contributions in our world that have helped us understand their culture, their history, their challenges, and we wouldn't have had the pleasure of sharing in their creativity. So we make special acknowledgement of their contribution to the arts tonight. Creative industries, and I'm not going to dwell too much on the economic benefits at this stage, but creative industries contribute $111 billion to the Australia's economy. It's an economic contribution comparable to the forestry, fishing and agricultural industry. So it's significant. Importantly though, the contribution of the arts is much more than the economic benefits, and particularly the contribution to the social and cultural benefits for society, and including more connected communities. Imagine our lives without arts, which many people experience all over the world. Thank goodness for the foresight and generosity of the people over centuries who have placed priority on the value of arts as a fundamental part of our society, and have usually matched that contribution with investment in different forms. Their wisdom has allowed us to experience and understand the world and share the beauty that they fostered. Imagine a world where Newcastle Art Gallery didn't exist. While we've had to experience that in the past few years as part of a redevelopment, as I said, it's the soft opening at the end of this month and official reopening early next year. We are forever grateful for the foresight of people like Prue and others who have worked so hard to support and foster the Newcastle Art Gallery, which is a shining light for regional galleries in Australia. In Newcastle, we also have more than 20 private galleries, and the highest proportion of artists per capita is anywhere in Australia. So we have a significant art scene. So we want to celebrate that tonight, but we also want to challenge ourselves to see whether we can build on some synergies in the art scene to strengthen it even more. Firstly, I want to introduce our speakers, and many of you will be familiar with Prue. Prue has been a member of the Art Gallery Society since 1980. Sorry, Prue. And since 2006 has been president of the Art Gallery Society. She has worked with 4 art gallery directors and has been a Newcastle Art Gallery guide from 2017 until 2 years ago. In the past, Prue has been a member of the Art Gallery Association and the de-accessioning committee, which I think is a very important role. She's been editor of Artemis, published by the Art Gallery Society. And in 2004, she represented the Art Gallery Society as an advocate for the expansion of the art gallery. In 2019, Prue was recognised in the Australian Day Honours, understandably, for her contribution to the art gallery and other volunteering pursuits. So welcome Prue to speak about the art gallery. I might just introduce the other speakers first. So Dino, up there, is an artist who lives and works in Newcastle and is co-director of Straightjacket in Broadmeadow with his partner Anne Wells. Dino's studio is outside, and I think we're using that in the broad term, outside, where he draws his inspiration from painting on plein air. Is that the correct pronunciation? Leaving 4 walls of the studio behind for director interactions with the elements and changing light. Educated in Melbourne and Sydney, Arne is now based here, and that's a great thing for Newcastle. He's exhibited locally and in Sydney and has been awarded commissions and prizes nationally. He has a commitment to artistic collaboration and strengthening the art scene in Newcastle. And Braddon, immediately here, is director of the Creator Incubator in Newcastle, the largest group of artists under one roof in Australia, specifically in Hamilton North, for those people that may want to travel there after tonight. Braddon has developed a practice, Braddon has developed a practice over 20 years that encompasses sculpture and installation in diverse range of media. Highlights include participation in Sculpture by the Sea 7 times, a finalist in the McClellan Sculpture Survey and Award, the Wallara Small Sculpture Prize, ISF Career, and numerous significant public art commissions and that demonstrate a thorough understanding of materiality and sight. Braddon has earned a reputation as an astute understanding and sensitivity to materials that reveal a minimal aesthetic that is equally rich in content. Braddon also is committed to strengthening the art scene, particularly in Newcastle. Welcome the 3 speakers. We're going to cover a range of things tonight, but firstly the speakers are going to just give a bit of introduction about how they see the Newcastle art scene. Prue?
Well, thank you, Robin, and thank you to the Hunter Institute. Newcastle has valued the arts. If we drive around now, we see some derelict buildings that have School of Arts written on the top of them. And then in the 1890s, works of art were donated to the city. They're hanging in the City Hall at the moment. 1889. One of them happens to be the winner of the Wynne Prize, the Art Gallery of New South Wales. And it's a painting, a big panorama of the Hunter Valley, and it's by William Lister. So the art has been prominent. Before the gallery was built, not the current building, not the middle building, but the War Memorial Cultural Centre, that came about because of the philanthropy of an ophthalmologist from Sydney, Dr. Roland Pope. He challenged the city to build a gallery for the city the size it was in 1947. He said, "I'll give you my collection," which he did, and the council then built the War Memorial Cultural Centre in Layman Street. And they commissioned a fine sculptor, Lyndon Dadswell, to do the 2 figures which are standing now still in the foyer. And I'm sure some of you, like me, as a child, stood near those figures and thought they were awe-inspiring. They were fantastic, and they're still there. The gallery opened in 1957. The then director, Gil Docking, had his collection ideas, and it was a small floor in the centre. Then in the 1970s, we have David Thomas. Now, David Thomas was quite innovative as a director. He introduced gallery guiding, volunteer gallery guides, and it was also the time for the establishment of the Art Gallery Society. Now, what is the Art Gallery Society? It is a group of interested citizens, people who enjoy looking at art, being part of the scene. They may not have a collection of their own, so they can enjoy the public art collection. The collection today has 7,000 works of art. In David Thomas's time, he worked on the plans to build the 1977 building, and that was opened in 1977 by Queen Elizabeth II. The gallery has outgrown its space there with its 7,000 works of art and its works, permanent collection sometimes being stored off-site. It now has a new era ahead with a gallery 2.5 times the size, and that gallery will open to the public on the 26th of September, on Friday night, in conjunction with the City Council's new annual festival. So the street will be closed and people will be allowed to go in to the gallery. It is quite a milestone in the city. It's taken a long while to get there. In 2004, I was involved with the first plan under the directorship of Nick Mitsevich. It didn't work. It was thwarted. The plans were thrown out. A new director came to town, Ron Ramsey, and he was charged with finding a different plan. And he did. And today, Loretta Morton has taken over with that plan and run with it. Now, that's way back in 2004. In 2013, I was on a working party, and Tim Crackenthorpe, he led that party. That was wiped away. In 2018, Kathy Tate was given the job of being the chairman of the working party. And it got to the point where, in the end, I said, look, are you going to do it or aren't you going to do it? And we were most fortunate, a little story here, with philanthropy. Judy Hart was the chairman of the foundation, the Gallery Foundation, another support body for the gallery. And Judy's neighbour needed something to do, so Judy used to bring her along to Gallery Society events. And she enjoyed herself so much that in her will, she gave 10+ million to the gallery. And she gave 10 million to the Hunter Medical Research Institute. What a gift. That gift initiated a $5 million gift from the federal government and the state government, $5 million. And then Val Ryan and John Ryan's benefaction was the catalyst to get it going. And there are other people here in the room and also out in our community who have put a lot of money towards the extension of the art gallery. And I think Novocastrians should be very proud of this new gallery. It has a wonderful collection. It's championing First Nations art. There are 4 commissions by First Nations. 2 of those are local hunter artists. One of the works is a commission, a sculptural commission, and that has been funded by the Art Gallery Society. So that's why we have fundraising events, so we can give money to the gallery to commission things or buy works of art. That work of art will be in the new atrium as you walk in. The Gallery Foundation has donated money towards a commission, and that's in another area of the gallery. It's a large work and it's by a Queensland First Nations person. I think everyone's going to be very impressed when they go in and see it. The gallery director, Loretta Morton, will champion First Nations art with exhibitions, programs and publications, all sorts of things, and bringing those people into the gallery. Any more? Okay.
My name's Dino Consalvo, and I started Straight Jacket with Arn Wells because we believed in artists in the area. Arn was, I first met Arn in 2014, I think it was. She became my gallerist, and I was watching the way she was working and the way she was unifying all the galleries. She started independent galleries, and she would take tours from one gallery to another, and I was looking at all these artists around the place, and I thought, there's something really good going on here. At that time, the centre of Newcastle was very dead, except for these artists that were there, taking up spaces, cleaning up the old shops, and presenting their wares, basically. And it was a real grungy, down-to-earth, healthy, buzzy environment that they were creating in a space that had nothing to offer. They gave something to offer. And I'm really passionate about not losing the resource that we've got. Artists in Newcastle have given us something really special. They've given us some energy. I look at this man over here and what he's created with the Creator Incubator, and I am blown away. He's given me inspiration, and with that inspiration, we started Straight Jacket, and we've not looked back since. We've got to remember that we've got a really good resource. Artists are a resource in a community. They create a philosophy, an outlook on life that we can't get in any other way. And it's really necessary for society to have that. I look at the way the city is developing now, and I'm wondering whether or not we're doing the right thing. I'm a little bit worried that we'll end up like Sydney and all our artists will have to move out. The beautiful thing about Newcastle when I was growing up was that we lived in a society that was cohabitant. We would live next to a rich person or a poor person, and we would just get on with life, and that's what it was all about. We're being sort of put into these areas where similar demographics move in, and it's kind of bland, and I worry about that. I also worry about the sustainability of artists staying here, and I think we need to do something about that. And I think I've said enough for the moment.
Thanks, Dana. There's nothing left for me now. Where to start? I think my experience of Newcastle as a place of the arts is fully inspired. All of my training was here. I grew up in Lake Macquarie, but all of my arts training was here. So much of my experiences of what a vibrant cultural place is informed by my experiences here at the two different art schools and the other institutions like the Art Gallery, of course, and another place called the Newcastle Community Arts Centre, which doesn't exist anymore, which was once supported, funded by the council. Which is one of the reasons why this Creator Incubator thing ended up happening, was because of the Community Arts Centre being abandoned, if you like, and also the Renew Newcastle initiative being wound down at the time. And it was just it happened to be perfect timing for me. I was just in the right place at the right time, and I knew the right person at the right time for this Creator Incubator to start. David Saddington had a lot of empty spaces at the time, and he was willing, unknowingly, but willing to let me have a crack at this thing, and I'm sure he thought it was only going to last 6 months or something. So that's happened, and since then, yes, now we have 50 artists. We're claiming internationally we're the biggest art studios, but yeah. But from that has also grown a whole village over there in Hamilton North, where there's 50 artists within the Creator Incubator. We have about 2,000 square metres of studio space, including the gallery spaces. But it's a 20,000 square metre block over there that David owns, and it is 95% full of creative industry, creative practitioners. We've got filmmakers, animators, musicians, pretty much you name it over there. So it has become a working arts village, which is essential. Often in funding and focus is on the outcome of what art is, presentation in the gallery, funding bodies, want to see that outcome, but artists need to have that place to be able to experiment, to test work, to learn, to cohabitate and collaborate. All of that has to happen, and it be educated as well. We'll talk about education, I'm sure, for those outcomes to happen. And talking about worrying for the future, that's one of the things I worry about for the future, and one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the incubator, but the whole village happening over there.
Thank you for the introduction, and so we're going to focus on a number of things tonight, but I wanted to start off by getting your views on what you think are the opportunities that are going to arise for the art scene broadly with the reopening of the gallery, and what we need to do to realise those opportunities.
I might as well go. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of opportunity. Obviously, the size and the profile that the new gallery is going to have is going to be a massive draw card for the city. It's going to be an amazing place of research for artists and for the community to be exposed to. It's always been a fantastic place for the community and young people to be exposed to art and the possibilities of art making and culture. So that's going to be a massive thing, and it will actually provide opportunities for local artists. Loretta has talked a lot about the amount of space that they're dedicating to local artists, and I can't name names, but I know artists who are being commissioned to do works, local artists who are being commissioned to do works for the new programs and so on. So that's very exciting. And I think another thing is I said it's going to have a high profile. It's actually, Newcastle's getting noticed, as you're probably aware. Dino said in the article from the Australian, it's the new Berlin, if you like. It's getting noticed, and it'll get noticed even more because of this gallery. It will lift its profile further. You can probably go further on that.
You've all heard about destination tourism. I think this gallery is going to be one of those places that people will come to. There's a lot of people out of Newcastle value Newcastle, and I'd like everybody in the community to value what they have as well. You have a rich collection of art, and it's only going to increase. There are people from out of Newcastle, like Anne Lewis, who donated the John Olsen ceiling, which was in her dining room, and it is now in our gallery. And when John Olsen was here for his 90th birthday party, he said, "I'm so pleased a gallery has put my ceiling work on the ceiling." Another benefactor has been Simon Mordaunt recently. You may have heard. He's a philanthropist, and he donated some of his collection to our gallery recently. Another person was John Olsen as well. The list goes on. We've also had William Bowmore in the past, who donated some beautiful bronzes. So that's added a European flavour. However, I must say the gallery's collection policy is contemporary Australian art. So you won't see any Renoirs and you won't see any money being paid for a Monet or anything like that. So I think once this gallery's open, everybody likes a new place and they will come. And the gallery's size now will be able to attract travelling exhibitions. So they could be national, they could be international. And it will be of art galleries standard with lighting and air conditioning and all of those things in consideration. And that's what they're very, very busily doing now to get it up to standard.
I remember going to the gallery as a boy when it was at the Cultural Centre, and I would sit on that sculpture, the sword, the broken sword, and I think what that gallery did for me, I think I was 10, 11, going there by myself, and what it did for me was open my eyes. And I think the opening of this new gallery now, the Newcastle Regional Gallery, will be really inspiring. It'll get people thinking about it that would never have thought about it before. And I'm hoping that cafe will fill up with people that have never walked in a gallery. There's a beautiful passage in 9th Street Women. It's about, it's a book about American women involved in abstract works that were created in the 50s. And there's this beautiful passage where this African-American woman who's never been to a gallery, doesn't know what a gallery is, walks into this exhibition that they've put on 9th Street. And she asks the fellow who's minding the gallery if she can have a look at what's going on inside, and he lets her in. And she's just mesmerised by everything. She's taken away. And he could not believe, this fellow that was minding the gallery couldn't believe the reaction he was getting from this woman. And I think a lot of people are intimidated by going to galleries. It's a problem. I don't know what it is, but I remember reading that, and I'm hoping that this gallery will inspire people that have never been there to go there, and also it will inspire everybody to go to other galleries. It'll be like a little wave, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. I've done, in preparation for tonight, I've looked at some of the evidence around thriving arts communities and particularly visual arts communities in sort of the empirical evidence around it. It's a bit of my bent to look at that sort of thing. So I've tried to categorise some of the evidence, and I think it talks about the need for investment, and that public and private and human resource investment, strategy and partnerships, and a value on the arts as a priority in our society. So they're the broad categories. And I was wondering what you thought about whether we have those things in place to maximise the synergies that might arise as a result of the reopening of the gallery.
As far as investment,
I mean, that's what the evidence says.
yeah, yeah.
But the strategy is really important, and partnerships.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the gallery is a different beast on that side of things. I know in the sort of general art community, there is no strategy. But there is need. It's a bit hard when you're a disparate independent organisations to have a particular strategy. I guess we all have our own. sort of small strategies, if you like. But that is one of the difficulties from, I'm sure Dino would say the same thing, but certainly from the incubator side of things, it's difficult to engage and bring in support and investment. It's very difficult to engage. I mean, people come and enjoy the place and see it's a place of wonders and amazing artists and so on. But it's difficult, and there are things. There's the it'll come to me. I've lost the name of it. But there's an organisation run by Creative Australia that helps bring in philanthropists and is a way to fundraise for, which is something I've learnt a little bit more about recently. So that's something that we can strategise to draw people in. So that, for instance, just a little bit of detail, the Creator Incubator is a company. So I can't be a not-for-profit that can get tax deductible status, right? So anybody giving money to the Creator Incubator can't claim that on tax. But the organisation, which the name of it has left me...
Australian Cultural Fund.
Australian Cultural Fund, right? You can raise funds through the Australian Cultural Fund, and they can be the to be a tax deductible recipient. So that's just going off into a little rabbit hole, but that's kind of important. I think one of the things that I've been trying to work really hard with since the incubator sort of gained momentum was to try and engage the everyday person, but also the business community to support the initiatives. And it's not going into my pocket, it's going to the artists, it's going to infrastructure for the artists. And it's also, if I talk about the big picture, the Clyde Street picture, I've mentioned David Saddington, you know, he's not going to live forever. What happens then? What happens to, you know, the 100 or so creative practitioners over there? We potentially could all fall down and it all starts all over again. You know, we go through that sort of process. So looking for ways of philanthropy and investment in the arts to continue things like that, I guess.
Maybe we could just plant a seed. I like to think about things, and one of the ways, you know, when you go to a restaurant, for example, you go to a place where there's a lot of restaurants. And I mentioned Anne before, and that's what she was trying to do. She was trying to make the gallery successful, so share it all around, work together. And I have this fantasy where Newcastle Art Gallery, Maitland Art Gallery, and the Lake Mac Art Gallery decide to do a very special event, maybe once a year, every 2 years, sorry, biennial. Sorry. And all the other galleries get on board and they have this event. And then all the studios of all the artists we've got get on board and open up their studios. And then everybody from all over the place will come here. The problem we've got at the moment is, I don't know if anybody saw that article in The Australian. It was a great article. We've got a lot of great artists in Newcastle, we know that. But we've become an export capital. They all go to Sydney, Melbourne, all their work goes off to all different places. What we've got to do is turn it around, get people to come here. And then we've got something, I really think. That's what I would like to see.
I was just going to say, I know a lot of people in this room will know that we've got a lot of amazing, fantastic artists, but I think that's an education thing we need to work on as well, right? For the community to actually understand the quality and depth of the artists that we have in this place. Like, we've got award-winning artists in national awards, finalists in all of the big awards, constantly from Newcastle, in top galleries, getting exhibited in the Art Gallery in New South Wales, doing things internationally. They're all here under our nose. People just have to, people have to open their eyes up to that. And I think that's one of the problems with Newcastle in general is the old, cultural cringe kind of thing, Sydney's bigger and better. I know people who go to Sydney and buy artworks, go to a Sydney gallery. I know personally who will go to a Sydney gallery to buy artworks from a Newcastle artist because they're being told, culturally it's safer. We're being told by a big Sydney gallery that this person's important. We should buy their work, and they go down to Sydney, buy that work, and bring it back to Newcastle. Which is. I'm not being completely critical of that. I'm just saying that there needs to be a cultural shift in Newcastle as far as recognising that. And one of the benefits of us getting Sydney refugees is Sydney refugees actually understand the value. They're coming here and understanding the value of Newcastle artists. They're buying Newcastle artists, I can tell you.
By the way, they do that with Porsches too. We've got one of 10 Porsche showrooms made by Porsche, but Newcastle boys would rather go to Sydney to buy their Porsche. Sorry, had to throw that in. I really think we could do something if we could all get together. I really think we could do something.
Well, we've been working on that, and the smaller galleries and institutions and stuff like that are quite collegiate now, and we understand that coming together as a body is actually it's much more powerful and sustainable, and sharing resources as well.
On funding, the gallery does seek grants from various places to run their programs, their public programs. And I'm just thinking, I learned tonight that there is an outreach program with schools in the Throsby Creek area, and they're all doing something for that opening night at the gallery. So the gallery is reaching out, and it has always reached out, and even during the closure for the 4 years, they have been out in schools, out in other places, the streets of Hamilton, and doing things. So it's not just a grand building with some wonderful paintings. There are public programs which engage audiences and keep audiences coming back. And that's up to the director and her direction now of how the gallery will engage a community. The gallery is a cultural asset to the city, but it still needs funding. And the Gallery Society works by raising funds. We have fundraising activities. We ran a film festival for 14 years here at the Tower Cinema. And we engaged with the event cinemas, the big business, and we had a partnership, and it was grand. It was fun. We're hoping to do that again once the Tower opens. We've been negotiating there again. But all of those funny little things that we've been doing is raising money to assist or gift works of art. Now, I don't decide what goes into a collection. All of those 7 directors of the gallery have decided the direction of the collection. They know which artists to choose. They go to commercial galleries and buy. The Lockup even, I know local artists have been bought from there. I know, Braddon, you're in the collection during Nick Mitsovich's time and Loretta's time. So things are happening. But money is we need money. But the funny thing about the society, it's like a community, and people enjoy coming to things, getting to know people, and then feeling really proud. I helped buy that. I put that on the wall. That's hanging up there because I put some money towards it.
When you look at cities like Berlin, Glasgow that I'm familiar with, Portland and Seattle in the States. They've had specific things happen in their cities. So look at Seattle, and I think the Chihuly Glassworks was a real instigator for building their thriving arts scene, led by their local authority. So I'm assuming it's the council equivalent. Similar in Glasgow, a little bit more in Berlin from sort of state and federal governments. Do we have the policy settings right to do things, to get a strategy together to complement the things that you are doing as individuals?
No, the short answer is no. That's something I'm working on, actually. I'm trying to get a round table together of the 3 levels of government. At the moment also there's a tax review in the arts as well, which I put a submission into. I hope some other people did as well. So hopefully that helps as well. This brings up my bugbear of the Community Arts Centre dying, right? There needs to be investment by the council. The council actually has to invest in these things. And the council does recognise the value of cultural tourism. They sprout it in their tourism documents, but they don't provide anything from the other end. In a sense, they're taking and they're not giving anything. One thing they are doing is I'm recently on the Public Art Advisory panel for developments in Newcastle, and it's been there for a long time, but they're actually getting serious about it with taking the 1% for developments. I think it's over 20 million. So with all this development, you'll be seeing much more public art, and with this panel in place, you'll be seeing much more rigorous public art as well, and not just architectural embellishments. So that's a plan. I have this theory that if we increase that 1% a little bit or opened up it a little bit more, I think they've reduced the number down to something like 10 million now for developments. But if we could increase that a little bit, maybe they could invest back into some cultural institutions, going back to what the private sector is having to scrape around and trying to provide now. And a good example is Western Sydney is having buckets of money thrown at it to do just that. Clover Moore's doing it in the city, building and populating large buildings with students and with studios and for artists of all different types, exhibition spaces and so on. I think 2/3, I think I did a rough calculation, about 2/3 of the state government's allocation for their latest allocation for Create New South Wales funding has gone to Western Sydney. 1/3 of that, I think, has gone to another film studio. Some of it's the Powerhouse, and then to all these buildings and these places they are developing in Western Sydney. Somehow we need to get on that train. I don't know.
It's interesting that we often talk about the proportion of the contribution of Newcastle to the economy in New South Wales, and we talk about the return that we get from that contribution, but we often talk about the return in terms of infrastructure. You know, are we getting much money to build roads or to hospitals or whatever? I haven't really heard the discussion about, are we getting the return on our contribution in terms of arts, and maybe that's a discussion that we need to have, I think, in the future. So have others got comments on the, what needs to happen sort of at council or state government level to get those synergies right?
I don't know enough about that process, but I'm willing to do something.
I mean, one of the comments when I was looking at the research that someone made is rely on one-off events at your peril for sustainability, and I wonder whether reliance on individuals to do it is perhaps a problem in approach where a coordinated approach might be better.
Absolutely. I know running my gallery is hard work. Yeah, running the gallery is hard work. You haven't got that energy to do much more. We need another body to work with us, which is what we'll...
So which is why I, agreed to join the board of Hunter Creative Alliance. I don't know if anybody's heard of Hunter Creative Alliance. What we are trying to do is bring the whole arts community together, the whole arts community, not just visual arts, as an advocacy body. So we are at least we're getting those conversations, and our voice is getting heard with politicians and council and all that. But it's the start, and we're all arts practitioners. One is myself trying to have my own practice, run the Creator Incubator, be on panels and boards and things. Rosemary Milson, who directs the Writers' Festival. Katie McCarthy, who's got the only independent contemporary dance company in Newcastle. We're all trying to run our businesses, our initiatives, while trying to do this bigger thing. So it's a constant problem in the arts. The people who are motivated to do that thing don't have any time or resources.
We might just go on to something you touched on earlier, and that is education. And in preparation again for this, I found out that over the past decade we've seen a reduction in arts education in schools, in TAFEs and in universities, reducing training pathways for artists and opportunities for people other than artists in cultural literacy and critical thinking that arts brings. Between 2018 and 2025, 40 creative art courses have been discontinued by Australian universities, including the visual arts program here at Newcastle University. And other courses have gone under major cuts. Now, Roger may correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think music education is no longer compulsory in schools, no longer part of school education, so that's another area of a diminishment, I suppose, of the arts in education. Part of the responsibility is shifted to the job-ready graduate program with universities and the significant increases in the cost of arts education as a result of that graduate-ready program. So without that pipeline for future artists, how are we going to have a sustainable art scene in Newcastle, let alone Australia?
He's doing it now. He's got the Creator Incubator happening. There'll be other people doing music things.
Unfortunately, that's, things like the incubator and other smaller things like, Onward Studios and other places like that are having to take up the slack of the and Newcastle art space as well. Having to take up, or Hudson Street Hum, I have to mention those, because of the killing of the University Art School and I say decimation. I want to be positive about the TAFE Art School, but it is, to be honest, it is still half what it used to be. I'm sorry for anyone here who works there. I studied there. I know what such a vibrant art school it was. I studied at both of them. When I studied there, it was a full-time, vigorous course, a full week of study. You did 2 years to do a diploma, kind of thing. Now you do it takes 1 year to do a diploma, and you do it for 3 or 4 days a week, at the most. It is a shadow of its former self. The University Art School is gone completely, apart from one little creative arts elective, I think, or major in one of the design courses. But the big thing this question came up because I worry about the future. You know, we shout out that we've got the most artists per capita, thanks to Anne Bomberto. But we're going to keep claiming it for as long as we can. But the future is a worry. Like, just briefly going back to support that the incubator has, we have had some philanthropic or patronage support where we are able to provide an emerging artist studio, for a free studio for an emerging artist for 12 months, and they get to have an exhibition at the end of that 12 months. A fantastic opportunity for a young artist who might not have the money to be able to pay for a studio every week, right? Every month. You would think we would get 50 or 100 applications. If we get 20, that's great, right? Which surprised me, and so that was the start of me thinking, what's the future going to be like? The other studio I'd like to say is that we're another patron, a couple of patrons. We have a First Nations studio as well, which is the same thing, 12 months, and an exhibition at the end. So there is some patronage out there, and we all need more. But yes, we're in trouble, really.
The Newcastle Gallery will inspire some people to do it. Anne and I have been doing a lot of judging of prizes. The thing that gets me most are the children's work. And when you look at a whole exhibition of children's work, you realise there are artists there. There are plenty of artists out there. It's just that they get crushed by the time they get older. You've just got to try and not let that happen. Somewhere along the line, they've got to nourish that.
That's one of the gallery's roles, right? But also, just on that makes me think, going back to the university side of things, teaching there for many years, the other thing that Newcastle University did was it drew in many potential artists from the wider regions, places, count of how many students I had from Dubbo and Tamworth and so on. Because they wanted to come to the city, but not the big. They didn't want to go to Sydney, the big city. They want to come to this big town kind of place. It was somewhere in between for them. And we've had amazing artists develop from those regions, and they won't be coming here anymore either. And where will they go? They won't go to the big city. They will go and do something else. So it's not just a Newcastle problem. It's a national problem.
I was just going to mention the art gallery does reach out to younger people. There are tours for school children, all ages, and even preschoolers have been dawdling through on a tour and playing I Spy games and all sorts of things. There was an art cart, and I'm not sure whether that will continue in the gallery, and that was free. All you had to do was book in, and that was funded by a local businessman. So there is philanthropy, but sometimes people don't want their names out there. They just write the cheque and hand it in. But that went for many, many years, that art cart, and I'm assuming it was so successful that those children will come back, or that educational thing will continue in the gallery. But the gallery has a lot of outreach programs which they offer to the community. As far as funding, as I said, grants are sought all the time. The council funds different things. They're funding this development, this expansion, and it is a big staff. It's tripled in size, and they have faith in it. I can remember many years ago a councillor saying, "Oh, not my bag, love," when we asked him to do something or talk or something. No, not my bag. And I've never forgotten that. I just throw that out there sometimes. But anyway, we have to change that culture and celebrate what we have and what we've come from, but also where we're going as well and what can be offered. And we have the artist studios all there together, and we have a commercial gallery. And yeah, there is a wealth here, but we can build on it and continue to build on it. and hopefully the gallery. I'm not representing the gallery. I'm representing the Gallery Society. I don't know what their policies are and things like that. I'm party to a few things, but not a lot. It's a flagship for the city, and I'm hoping that the citizens of Newcastle will appreciate it. I've talked to young people. I never go there, never been in there. And I remember one night we had a young group, I was a guide at the time, and a young group of business people, they'd come from their big tower office block, and they said, oh, I didn't know this was here. And I said, oh, it's been hiding behind the fig trees, it's been here for a long while. And anyway, I said, oh, do you have works of art in your office blocks? Oh, we've got a Knights jersey in a frame. And I said, oh, well, that's art. Anyway, but it's education. It's just educating ourselves and bringing your friends in. A few weekends ago, I went to Dungog Sculpture on the Common. Now, what a successful day that was. That community, all volunteers, led by a little committee of 5 people, the town just came alive. Little Dungog, and the Common was full of people, and they had young boys driving the shuttle buses up to the top of the hill to see the sculptures on the hill. Everyone was cheerful. They all had their high vests on. They would have gone home exhausted. It was just bringing a community together through art.
Just before we hand over to you for questions, I just wondered if each of you would say, what is your vision for a thriving art scene in Newcastle sort of for 10 years' time? And what do you want us to do to help you get there?
In some ways, I dare to have a vision, Yeah, I guess in general, I would love it to be, this continue to be and build off this. We're in a great spot. The arts community is thriving, in spite of all of the negatives that I may have mentioned there. It is really thriving and working well together. I would like to see that just continue to build. I know we have great relationships with Loretta and the whole gallery team, so I have confidence that when the gallery opens, that connection with the smaller initiatives and so on will continue and grow from that as well. Going back to what I hope for in that vision is that the business community gets more connected and more involved with, and the small business all the way up to large business, really gets in and supports in a financial way, of course. But I think going back to the sort of grassroots side of thing, I think what we need people to do individually is the first thing they can do is, I always say it, is purchase an artist's work, right? And not go and purchase that thinking that it's some kind of big investment. Hopefully this is going to make me rich one day. It's about actually supporting someone's initiative, someone who is putting it all on the line to be creative, right? And it's a hard road to take, and if you can support them by buying their work, the other thing you could do is you could come to the incubator and say, I'm going to pay that artist rent for a month, or 6 months, or a year, or whatever. There's many ways. You could, we've got 2 sponsored studios, you could sponsor another studio. That's just, individually thinking like that. But yeah, purchasing artist work, the old days of, a patron for an artist, why can't we bring that back? Patrons would sponsor an artist, right? They not necessarily to buy a work from them. They would say, here's some money, go and produce art, and maybe they'll say, well, give me one. When you have your exhibition, give me one of your works, there's all of these kind of opportunities and supporting organisations by going to their events and so on as well, and throwing in a donation maybe. All right. Yeah.
Can I say something? I agree with all that, but I just want to see people come to the galleries. I want more galleries in Newcastle. I want people to come to galleries. I've never sold a painting. I own a gallery. Paintings sell themselves. But what I love seeing is when someone engages with the work, and that really makes me feel good. I really like that. I really like that. I love that. And the people love it that do engage. I'd like to see a way of enticing people in. I don't know what it is that you have to do. I'm struggling with that. Break that barrier down. Let's get in, let's get close, have a look. If that happens, we're there.
Well, I can't speak for the gallery, but my vision is that people enjoy themselves when they go to and not feel threatened, just come in and see the wealth of the collection and how extensive it is. It goes back to 1818. There's a painting there that's on sailcloth, painted by a convict, Joseph Lycett, in 1818. The Commandant, James Wallace, put his name to it until it was revealed that James Wallace didn't paint it. It was the convict. And now it's proudly, we have 3 of the paintings, and we're the envy of quite a few galleries. A convict artist. It's a beautiful vista of Newcastle, looking over the harbour and up to Port Stephens along Stockton Bight. The clouds, you go and stand on Obelisk Hill and look at the cloud cover and you think, Lycett must have seen this back in 1818. We have a wealthy collection and I'd love everybody just to appreciate it and get something from the gallery. Not just say, oh, I went to the cafe. Now, I know that happened somewhere else here. Oh, what did you see? What exhibition did you see? Oh, well, we went to the gift shop and we went to the cafe, but we want you to go into the gallery and appreciate the art and take away from it something, who knows, something small, something large. And you may then toddle off to a gallery, a commercial gallery, or you may go over to the incubator and find out how things are actually made. So
we might hand it over to audience questions now for the next half an hour or so until finish. Before we do so, though, I just want to thank Stuart McClellan. I don't know Stuart here. He's here. And Kathy Heinrich, who both helped us in putting this event together tonight. So thank you, Stuart and Kathy, for that as well. Okay, questions.
As an enthusiastic consumer of all that Newcastle has offered in terms of visual arts, I'd firstly like to say how extraordinary how extraordinary much they've contributed to what's happened in Newcastle visual arts. So I think it's fantastic this has been organised. On the matter of cultural tourism, of cultural tourism, I wonder whether there's a possibility of creating a new prize in Newcastle. I know there's the Kilcourt Prize, and when we think about the Archibald and the Wynn and so forth, and Dungod you mentioned, where masses of people attend, I don't know whether there are other sort of prizes that Newcastle Gallery has to offer, but with this new phase, I mean, is that something to consider?
Thanks, Peter. That's not something I can comment upon because I'm not on the staff. I'm a volunteer, and that may be something you can always go to the gallery and put forward an idea. But I know they have the Kilgour Prize, and that's every second year, I think. Anyway, sorry, can't comment.
Thank Thank you. I'd like to go to that very interesting observation about, I think a lot of people do find galleries intimidating. And I wonder, is that at least in part because of the language on the walls, which seems sometimes to be talking to other curators or other artists and actually not the broader community that you want to entice to the gallery and take something away. So is it about language?
Yeah, from an artist's point of view, it's a difficult line to tread, and from the gallery side of things as well. What I do know is, I know they do it in Maitland Gallery now, and I'm sure Newcastle will be doing the same. They'll be kind of doing two versions of captions on the wall. They do kids ones, and the kids ones, I know a lot of people said to me, "I'll just read the kids ones." You know, they're so much, you know, it's plainer language, right? So I think that's a good idea. I think having some just plain language, you know, it still gives people a way into the work. You know, it tells them a little bit about it, gives them a way in. And if people are more academically informed about art, well, they can, you know, maybe get something more out of the higher end caption. But I think galleries are recognising that. But that's a great point. Yeah, people do feel intimidated. I understand that. There's some commercial galleries that, you know, Dino and I would talk about, and particularly in Sydney, where as an artist you feel intimidated going into it.
I'll tell you a story. I was in Melbourne. I was living in Melbourne, and can I mention names? Deutsche Menzies opened this gallery on the corner of High Street and Malvern Road in an old ANZ bank. And I had a couple of businesses in Melbourne, and I didn't have a lot of money, but I had some money. And I'd met Fred Williams. In fact, I lived around the corner from where Fred Williams used to live. And they were showing Fred Williams' work. This was after he'd passed away. And I thought, maybe I can get one of those, a little one, something like that. So I walked into the gallery. I had my work scruffs on. I was pretty dirty. And I was looking around, and I was looking for someone to come up to me. There were no prices, nothing, no catalogues. And I saw the fellow, and I went up to him and I said, "Hi, look, I'm just driving past, and I thought I'd have a look, and could you tell me something about these works and how much are they?" And he totally ignored me. And it was revolting. It was revolting. I could have vomited right there and then. And when you come to my gallery, I'll say, "Hello, how are you? My name's Dino. Would you like a drink, a cup of coffee, tea? Come inside and have a look. There's a catalogue." But I'm trying to do everything to stop that from happening here.
I was just wondering about the use of social media to reach people through, like, for the gallery and also just the art scene in Newcastle. If we have a dedicated person using social media to advertise?
We use social media. There's lots of social media out there. The trouble with social media is it's all over the place, and it's very hard to channel it all into a cohesive. Many people have tried over the years to channel it. It's a lot of work, right? So there's no money for that. So the people who have done that previously have been sort of just doing it because they wanted it to happen. So it's very difficult to channel it all into one easily accessible sort of site. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if you guys.
The gallery does have a website, and they do have an e-newsletter which people can sign up to and receive all sorts of information about what's happening. And other than that, I'm not sure about. I think they have an Instagram post, by the way. They do. So, yeah.
I don't know what to add to that.
I was interested in knowing how you think the industry, the art industry, can be promoted
And you mentioned earlier that the CBD is becoming too expensive, to pricing people out from being able to get involved. I'm aware of Ron Hartree's art school and how it was sort of a central area for people to gather. How do you see us being able to encourage that industry, the arts teachers that are out there in the community that are bringing people together and teaching them and developing that talent?
I actually think if someone's really interested, they'll seek people out. If you're really keen, you'll seek someone out. But a lot of people will miss out if we don't do something, really.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that's happened historically, right? The artists come in, regenerate a place, and then they get forced out by development, which is happening, right? It's happened gradually. Everyone's getting forced further out. I can't sprout any particular examples, but I do know that there's examples of councils in Australia and internationally that have initiatives for creative spaces to remain in the city, and things like caveats on properties and so on. Tax, this is where I mentioned the tax reform as well, tax reform and tax relief for, and council rates relief for creative properties and so on, or for owners of properties to, as an incentive so that they don't just sell off their property to the highest bidder. So that's one of the pushes why I mentioned that roundtable is, you know, I use David Sadding as an example because it's, you know, it's what I'm connected with, but it's really important, right? If there's incentives for someone like him to give their property over to creative kind of initiatives, because they have to do it. They can't get the highest rent. If it's going to succeed, they can't get the top commercial rent. They've got to give someone. They've got to be generous to some point with their rent, right? But if their land tax and council rates and taxation initiatives that alleviate some of that, they might be more encouraged to give their properties over to those kind of things. And that can be old existing buildings in the city and so on. I think we need to fight on that front and pursue that.
I went to America in, I think it was 2009, and I was in North Carolina, and they had this redevelopment done. It was an old industrial estate, and the artists, like in Newcastle, the artists had been in there and kept the place going while everything was falling apart. The developers realised they had some really exciting little things going on there and thought, you know, what are we going to lose when we get rid of these people? This is crazy. So what they did was they had the first floor, they had a gallery and some studios. The next level was all studios, and all the residential was above that. And the deal was the artists got those studios for minimal rent, but they had to have their studio open once a month for open studio. And it was a weekend, a whole weekend. And on that, I actually visited this site on one of those open studio weekends. And they had, in this courtyard area, they had, the gallery was open, all the studios were open, they had food carts. Everybody came in from everywhere. It was buzzing. And you saw people walking around with paintings under their arms and sculptures and having hot dogs. But, I mean, that's another way of thinking, isn't it? I mean, you could do that.
I wanted to go back to the mention of the Western Sydney revival or rise and rise of Western Sydney. And it seems to me, apart from the Western Sydney Wanderers, that the arts, literature, the whole range and gamut of arts in Western Sydney has driven that revival. And I note that Create New South Wales has also, funded the Western Sydney revival. And I wonder what you think is the appetite for the state government or Newcastle City Council to recognise that outside of the ocean and the gorgeous harbour that we've got, that the arts is one of the things that can be invested to drive the revival and the cultural energy of a city.
In some ways, we've done it, right? Think back not that long ago to when the BHP was closing. You know, everyone thought it was. A lot of people thought it was kind of the end of Newcastle. The artists didn't. We knew that culture would fill in that and take hold. And the arts has, you know, grown and blossomed within that kind of context. It's a harder argument. As I said, the council recognises, you know, and that's why they're investing in the new annual festival, I guess, and the gallery, of course. And as I said, you know, the Creator Incubator is photographs of me and others in their glossy economic development plan, and the Broadmeadow strategy. The Creator Incubator gets a mention in that, right? You know, and that's my cynical thing saying, yeah, so give us something back, right? So they recognise it. They're in the tourism section of their website as well, right? You know, there's the incubator, and James Drinkwater features on there as well. I think Lottie, so they recognise all this as the importance of this cultural aspect of tourism and vibrancy of the city and so on. They just need to put their money where their mouth is. We need to just keep pushing. And likewise with the state government, you know, there's politics involved, right? Western Sydney is where all the votes are. We know that. But that's the fight, and that's why I talked about that round table. That's what I'm working on through Hunter Creative Alliance. So we can have actually not just have the members, our local members, but we can have the ministers. We want to have the ministers in that room if we can.
Thank you. And sort of following on what the last questioner said, I've been thinking for a while that Newcastle, with the impetus of John Costas, ended up with a music festival that is now part of our cultural calendar in August. And I wonder if Newcastle Council can sort of take that spot of the impetus of creating a visual arts event that is regular on the calendar, that involves the Creator Incubator and the working artist, as well as the private galleries, as well as the public gallery. That we need someone, somebody, something to draw it together so it becomes a feature every year that people can count on the way we count on going to the Newcastle Music Festival every year.
I know you guys want to. Just quickly, I would say, Dino, we've talked about the kind of Biennale kind of idea. I think would be perfect kind of thing. What I will say though, New Annual, as we know, was focused very much on performance and so on. I think there's a gradual change. You'll see some change in that this year, and from conversations that there'll be more change in that for the following year. That there'll be a bit more visual arts focus because it really missed out in previous years. So there's hope for that. But yes, a dedicated visual arts festival would be fantastic.
Well, I do know that there is a team in the gallery working with the New Annual festival, and they have done in the past with all sorts of festivals, but that's up to their programming as well.
Hi, yeah, I'm addressing this to you, Dino, and to everyone. But before I start, I'd like to say that your experience in that gallery is similar to mine and probably a lot of other women that have gone in to buy a car. Anyway, I'd like to congratulate you on your last exhibition that you had at the Creator Incubator. But I'd like to say that I see you painting en plein air on a Wednesday morning. I won't disclose your location for your own privacy, but it's amazing to watch you work with your very long paintbrushes onto board so that it doesn't blow away. But to go and see the exhibition and then be familiar with the scenes and the people, you know, at that place where you paint was very exciting. So I think there's an opportunity to take the art to the people. So as you said, a lot of people don't walk into an art gallery, whether they're intimidated or not just interested. But if you showed those works at that location where you paint and get people that would normally walk into an art gallery actually see art and make it accessible to them, like buskers do with their music, or the music festivals that people have talked about. And I'm thinking like at Montmartre in Paris, you know, people go and see the artists at work and then they're interested maybe to walk into a gallery or see that art. But finally, just congratulations on your exhibition.
We're going to finish up now. I'm going to hand over to Rob, and I feel as if we've put some pressure on you guys tonight in terms of what can you do. I guess I want to change that around a little bit and say to you and friends and colleagues, what can you do? What can we do to ensure that some of the ideas that we've talked about today can be realised? So it's up to us to let our political representatives know, for a start, that this is an important priority. This is an opportunity that should be realised with the opening of the gallery. So I would encourage you all after tonight not only to go to the Creator Incubator and to Straightjacket, and of course to the opening of the Newcastle Gallery, but also start saying to your local members at local, state and federal level, this is an important priority and we need something done here to support that. So I guess I would like to finish up in that saying, you're not alone. I hope that we all do something in response to some of the ideas that you've said tonight, because it is not an artist's responsibility alone or an art gallery responsibility alone to ensure a thriving art scene. I think it's the responsibility of all of us. So thank you for coming along tonight, and I hope you take up that challenge.
Thanks very much, and thank you to all of you who have added so much to the conversation tonight. And thank you to all those who are watching online that we know that join us each month. It's a great privilege to be able to do this sort of thing. We've heard about the economic contribution of art, and you know, the numbers of that just stagger me. You know, the scale of that it's sort of unseen. But we also know that art strengthens communities. It enhances social connections, growth, inclusivity, and resilience, and it reflects, I think, a nation's soul. I think artists have always told us about things about ourselves that we didn't really know. And they're like a mirror that reflects something about who we are. I think it was Picasso who said that art washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life. Would you please join me and thank Prue Viggers, Braddon Snape, Dina Consalvo and Robin Considine. Now, next month we have something most interesting, I think. In November, it will be 50 years since the dismissal of the Whitlam government. 50 years. I can remember exactly where I was when I heard that news. Perhaps it's time to reflect on what that means constitutionally, legally, socially, culturally. To help us do that, we have Professor Jenny Hocking, author of the 2-volume biography of Gough Whitlam and author of the Palace Letters. The Palace Letters required a High Court action to release the papers and other documents that were related to the secret planning and collusion behind the dismissal of Gough Whitlam. So Jenny Hocking, Professor Jenny Hocking from Monash University will be here. And joining us also will be Professor Frank Bongiorno, Professor of History at Australian National University, an author and a scholar par excellence. I hope you can join us for that conversation,
for this reflection on that 50 years and ponder the question, could it happen again? Thanks very much for your attendance tonight. I look forward to seeing you next month.